taking time out of their day to join us on these webinars, or this webinar. We certainly appreciate when you do join these webinars, because it's a great way for us to keep you up to date with what's going on with the CX and AVST. But we do realize how difficult it can be to take time out of your day and join us. So apropos the name of this webinar, Why Upgrade to 8.5, I think if you take a look at the next screen, or this screen, you'll see that there's a variety of versions that have either gone end of support or are about to. And if you're not sure what version of CallXpress, or let's say CallXpress 7.x or CX 8.x you have, I recommend you gather up that 13-digit serial number and get in touch with us so we can let you know exactly what version you're running. So the business drivers to upgrade to 8.5 are actually a pretty lengthy list, and some of them are going to be new to those folks who are currently on version 7. Because at the very change from 7 to 8, we actually made some changes that were pretty different than what you had in version 7. But probably the biggest driver these days is our ability to enhance productivity for the mobile workforce, and that being Adam, AVST's Total Office Manager, which we'll talk about at length in further slides. Additionally, every conversation that I'm in, or at least every one that I can imagine that goes on with opportunities, new and or upgrades, the concept of virtualization comes up over and over again. So we have some good news there that we'll talk about as well. That item that I'm telling you that's very different from version 7 to version 8 is our multi-server architecture, which now provides an ability to implement the system in survivable or high availability or even disaster recovery implementations, and so we'll cover that as well. An important thing to remember is a lot of Microsoft's operating systems, desktop applications, and Exchange in particular have gone out of support, so be comforted in knowing that we are supporting all the latest in Microsoft Exchange and Windows solutions. And for those of you who don't know, we're actually up at a really large capacity. We'll talk about some of the other capacities that we have, but we're now sitting at 500 ports, and in fact we'll even be moving beyond that. But this really lends itself nicely to centralizing in the data center. And lastly, we've made some improvements on security in our SIP integrations, where we've built in security to the SIP and RTP stacks. So back to the item about what's different from version 8 to version 7 is this multi-server architecture, which I think you'll see here. And if you take a look over at the right at the image, what we did when we were contemplating on how to do this, we know that we needed to eliminate the single point of failure, and so we were able to look at the product and understand it well enough to know that we could break it into components, and these two components are the call server and the system server. Call servers are the workhorses. This is where all the work is done, all the activity takes place. The phone is answered here, auto attendant, greetings are played, callers can make selections in menus or be transferred to extensions, and inevitably if they end up in voicemail, they'll be able to record that greeting, and all of this takes place at the call server. Once that call is over, that message gets delivered up to the system server, the brains of the operation. And this is where the database is stored centrally, although there are partial copies of the database on every single call server. The system server is the message store and where all administration is done. So as I mentioned before, what we've done, let's say in this example here, we've minimized or eliminated the single point of failure in a single server as we had in version 7. And let's say, for example, in a 24-port system, you could spread those ports, 8 ports each, over these 3 call servers. So if you lost one of the call servers, you'd only have lost 33% of your capacity. And the good news is you won't be sending a ring no answer to your calling community. Now, of course, what we're able to do here as well is create a call server that's independent of that system server. And if the system server were to go away, there's no loss of functionality. Everything that I just described about auto attendance answering, people being able to transfer themselves, and even being able to record a message and leave it for someone can still take place even though the system server is down or unavailable. Now, the next question you might ask is, well, what can you do beyond losing the system server? Because, of course, there is an impact when you lose a system server if you just have one, and that's the administrator can't get to it. There won't be any ability to make administrative changes, along with some other impacts. So the good news, of course, that the calling community is not getting a ring no answer, but there are some other impacts that, well, your management might prefer that you have a little more insurance involved in terms of what your availability is. So we offer a high availability solution with a redundant system server co-located, and it automatically will switch over in the event there's a failure on the primary system server. And so this switchover can actually take place literally, I've seen in seconds, although we say minutes. We, in fact, have a complete enterprise high availability solution here providing enterprise resiliency. Additionally, when we're talking about this topic, most people want to know about geographic disaster recovery. We need to be able to keep the system in production, or at least get it back into production in the event of a major catastrophe at the data center. And so naturally, we can also offer a tertiary system server at another location across a wide area network, or perhaps privately owned network, but in another building, where we can have a warm standby and or other call servers to continue to support the application. So what's great about what we've designed here is this new architecture allows you to get creative with your deployment options. There's a number of different possibilities. The slate is pretty much blank for us to design an implementation that supports your particular requirements, your particular enterprise. We're not going to be restrictive on how to employ our system in your environment. Your environment is pretty much going to dictate to us how to deploy the product. So along with the multi-server architecture that I showed you up front, you can then, with another step, introduce high availability, or perhaps you can go to a full DR solution, putting a system server in another location, or you can pretty much go with the full Monty here and have not only high availability at the data center, but geographic disaster recovery at another location. In terms of capacities, I would say that we've certainly entered into the enterprise markets, but we've actually been there for quite some time now with these capacities. 500 ports and 40,000 users is pretty hard for us to bump up against these days, although we do have some very large enterprise customers. And for those of you who are currently on version 7 and might have systems that are actually larger than 144 ports, this multi-server architecture has changed, and if you are above 144, it will require multiple servers to accommodate the same application you have today on a single server. But again, a large application like that, you want to eliminate the single point of failure and start to build in survivability and high availability, as I've discussed. Just a side note here over on the right, we can also integrate to 10 disparately different manufacturer PBXs. So we have an ability, as many enterprises have grown by acquisition, to integrate with a variety of PBXs on a single system at the same time. Now, of course, we've been talking a lot about servers, and so the news, and of course from the bullet earlier on, is that we are capable of virtualizing everything relative to CX and all of its enhanced and/or peripheral applications. Every one of them can be virtualized. As you can see, we are certified VMware ready, and in fact, VMware is a customer. So Adam, AVST's Total Office Manager is a collection of features and capabilities, some of which have been around for a while and some of which are relatively new, only in version 8.5. But what this does is it allows us to talk more about the total solution and in fact easier to quote and to sell to you as well, because it's a single part number bundle, including all these individual licenses, which of course can be purchased individually, but it's so much easier to deliver the full solution in terms of what Adam can do by talking about it and of course configuring the system in this way. The biggest component of what Adam does is really enhance the productivity of the mobile worker. I think everyone would agree that being mobile is more and more a part of our daily work lives. And that could be you getting in the car, going to and from work, and going to meetings in the office, not really spending that much time at your desk. Or it could be you being in the car a lot, traveling to different appointments, or if you're in the city, on the sidewalk or in the subways, or in fact, heading to an airport and flying to another city and staying in a hotel overnight and attending meetings the next day. All these situations, all these scenarios, all revolve around being mobile, and having this functionality is really what Adam brings to the table. Now, surveys tell us that one of the highest priorities of customers seeking unified communication solutions is unified messaging. That is the top feature that's expected in a unified communication solution. And so, good news is that, and many of you who are already unified messaging users already know that we've been supporting unified messaging in so many different ways with so many different email servers for over 20 years. And in fact, is a component of what Adam brings to the table. Hands-free speech is another addition to this Adam bundle that really enhances the capability of a mobile worker once again, because although that smartphone that we're all using these days is a handy tool to have, it may not always be the best tool in terms of getting to applications or reading your inbox. You may in fact have to use speech or make a phone call in order to accommodate what you're trying to do. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. AVST's mobile client, the CX mobile client, is in fact available for the Android and iPhone. And as you can see here, there's a lot of functionality revolving around being able to control your availability, especially in terms of when you're away from your desk. And so you can override what might be a schedule, which we'll talk about in a minute, and actually be able to handle impromptu situations so that you're always able to either take the calls, the business calls that you're hoping to get, or in fact turn them away if in fact it's not the time for you to be taking calls. For For those of you administrators that might be on, you'll be happy to hear that we've also introduced the mobile administrator. At this particular phase, what we're offering is a set of a few features that are probably the topmost calls that come to the help desk relative to things that happen on a daily basis. And if, in fact, you're an admin for a larger organization where you're not at your desk quite often, or there are multiple buildings where you probably are, walking from and to, it can be pretty time-consuming to have to get back to your desk in order to accommodate security code reset or something like that, which could literally take seconds, but you'll spend half an hour to and from your desk, depending on where you were at the time. The good news here, of course, is that this is a web-based application, and this is just a glimpse of what we'll be doing in the future with the administrator's client in a web interface. Now, quite often when you're mobile, you want to be able to take your important calls or, in fact, do something or address those important calls. But sometimes, depending on where you are or what you're doing, you may not have the ability to take that call, but certainly you want to address the fact that you know you're getting this particular call. And so with the CX mobile app, we will actually pop the app, the call has come into CX, and pop the app and inform you of who is calling. So we're going to capture the caller ID of that inbound call and actually transmit it to the app so that you're aware of who's calling. And in fact, being that will be integrated with your email, calendar, and contacts, we'll also be able to put up the first and last name in that app so you're able to make an intelligent decision on what to do with this call. Accepting the call, obviously you know what happens there. Rejecting the call, of course, is going to give the caller some other options, including voicemail. But some of the options here that you also have are really useful, in particular the acknowledge feature. And this is one where, again, being mobile, I might be out and about to head into a meeting when I see very important customer calling, and I'm able to record an acknowledgement to say, I'm happy to see that you're calling, but unfortunately I can't take your call right now. I want to get back to you in about an hour or two after I'm out of this meeting. And so the caller who's waiting on hold back at the office hears Ed Sukas is unavailable but left you this brief acknowledgement. And so they're now happy they've gotten some courtesy from me, number one, as well as we've set an expectation for me to get back to them in a couple of hours. And the good news, too, is that acknowledgement message has been dropped in my inbox to remind me, because after 2 hours I may forget that I promised to make that return call. So I have a record of it in my inbox. Now, we talk about being able to use this feature at a time when we're potentially in meetings, but it certainly would be sort of disruptive to have recorded that message or to jump up and leave a meeting to record that acknowledgement message. I might as well have taken the call. So here, as many of us do in our meetings, we take our smartphones with us and sort of keep a watch on what's going on in our inbox, etc. And we could have seen that inbound call and silently acknowledge them without having to speak that message and let that caller know that you'll be getting back to them in the same way that I described just a moment ago. Now, different from many of the other providers of UC out there, we're providing sort of a telephony-based federated presence solution here because we're integrated with your calendar and, as I mentioned before, your contacts. These folks are calling in, and quite often it's either go to a phone, the phone doesn't get answer, we call the mobile phone. In this situation, when it's fully integrated, we can actually look at the calendars to see what's on your schedule. Most of us are living by this calendar on a day-to-day basis. And so in this case, the caller will hear, not ring a phone, but hear Robert Johnson is currently in a meeting and will be back at 11 a.m. Robert Johnson didn't have to do a thing to set this up. We don't have to manually make these adjustments on a daily basis anymore because we can automate this whole process. And if you happen to be a user of the Link Instant Messaging and Presence Engine, we can in fact give you an ability to override what's on your calendar. So for example, if this meeting that's supposed to end at 11 runs long, and I want to keep myself from phone calls and send them a voicemail, I can, as you see in the picture here, simply put myself in the Do Not Disturb, shielding myself from any inbound calls until the meeting is over. Conversely, if the meeting ended early, I could in fact put myself in the available state, and calls will start to come to me as they would normally if my availability was free. One of the options of the smartphone app is location-based services. And so now we can also automatically make a decision on what to do with your calls based on your location. Many of us are jumping on the Wi-Fi networks both at the corporate office and perhaps at the home office if you work from a home office from time to time or on a regular basis. And so we can detect when you've left each one of those networks and or have gone mobile, or in fact using geofencing make a determination through cell tower triangulation where in fact you are. So obviously if you're mobile, then the best place to send the next call will be to your mobile device. If you're on the home network, then perhaps the best place to send a call is to the device that you have on your desk at your home office. So what we've really grown into, for those of you who are on version 7, and certainly those who are on earlier versions of 8, we have seriously become the industry's most interoperable UC platform, far beyond voicemail and auto attendant. In terms of what we can integrate to from a PBX environment, we talked about our ability to integrate to multiple PBXs at the same time. We're providing unified messaging and UC functionality to a large degree to a variety of products that are out there, along with mobility and the ability to tie into back-end databases. The AVST product line has certainly gone far beyond what we have in version 7. Now this slide is great because there's so many different ways you can look at this and so many different results you can get out of the way you sort of connect the dots here. I'll just try one on you. If you take a look at the bottom, you'll see what is currently being done for applications, telephony, and infrastructure. And as you move to the right, you'll see where we are today and perhaps what we're going to be doing in the future. But in the first column, providing traditional voice applications over physical connections to the PBX, where we had to be in the same room with the PBX, and on-premise implementations was really the only way to go. We have now, in fact, become more mobile, and so mobile applications are certainly all the buzz today and what are important to provide those who are expecting functionality here. And because the PBX has gone to an IP or SIP-based solution, we're able to create more of that private cloud scenario by centralizing everything in data centers. And so from an application point of view in the future, what are we going to do with all these great applications that we've built? We need to find a way to put these all together to enhance business process and really come up with the final rung in the ladder of what we can accomplish here. The phone companies had a pretty good idea with Centrex so many years ago, but it was hardware-based and everything was a wire. Now, the hosted solution is here, and we call it the cloud, but in reality it still is very much like a Centrex solution or IP Centrex. And so the question will be, is it the private cloud or is it the public cloud? What we really believe is going to happen more often than not is a collection of both, or what everyone knows it to be is the hybrid cloud. And in fact, I think Ann has something to say about that. This very next slide.
Yeah. So Ed, if you want to go ahead and advance to the next slide. So we do have an incentive program along with this that we want to offer to you, and some of you may have already heard about this. I believe we did promote this via email in one of our recent customer emails that went out. So as part of your incentive to upgrade, there is an offer to move to Atom, as Ed presented. So the first option here, you can choose between the mobility package, which is half off, 50% off the Atom 50 user license package, and that's a savings of about $2,400 MSLP. Or if maybe that's not appealing to you, or you have an immediate need where you're actually looking at moving to an IP phone system, we can integrate to that most likely, just like we're integrating to what you have today. And this program is available from now until the rest of the year. So you can choose to actually, as you add that IP integration to your CXE system along with your upgrade, you get 50% off the integration license as well as the separate IP ports that go along with it, and that's available for just the first 48 ports. So that'll cover the bulk of the customers, I think. And then in addition to that, along with this as part of the upgrade campaign, if your XpressCare is expired, then you have the chance, as you renew that for the upgrade, we will waive the reinstatement fee. And for the larger systems, that's a significant savings. It's actually $1,000 MSLP for each 4 ports, as you can see on the screen here. And just to note, we've had a handful of customers that have inquired if the mobility package is appealing to you, but you're actually, let's say you're running version 8 or 8.2, and you're interested in getting Atom added onto your system, but you've got current XpressCare, we will make the promotion available if you add an additional year to your existing contract. So the program is contingent on adding a year of XpressCare if you are current. But still, hopefully we think we've put together a pretty compelling offer here. So I know our sales team will be happy to put together a quote and work with your partner to let you know what your options are and look at how the pricing works. So that's the program. Emily, I had a thought when we send out the slides. What we may want to do is also send out the jump promotion document. It's a PDF, as well as there's a more detailed document which covers the benefits of upgrading. The goal of this webinar was certainly not to cover every feature that's been added since the 7.x series, and so there's lots of other features. We tried to cover the big stuff on this webinar, but if you're interested in learning more about the other features that have been added, if it's been several versions since you purchased or upgraded, we'll send that out as well. So we'll make that document available. It's also available on our website. So and I think we're good to move on to the questions.
That's great. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you, Ann. Yeah, and I'll make sure I send out that additional piece of content for the JUMP program. Okay, so we do have questions, and let me pull up the first one. The first one, can the call server be on voicemail? On VMware. Currently I have a system server and a call server, and I want to be virtualized.
So the answer is yes, as long as the integration is an IP-based integration. If it requires a telephony board, then unfortunately I'll have to remain with that physical wired connection to the PBX. You could, however, run the call server externally in a physical server and virtualize the system server. If there would be a benefit to that, certainly you could do that.
Okay, next question is about consolidation. If I currently have multiple locations that run CallXpress version 7.5 through 7.9, with 8.5, can I consolidate the licenses on the individual systems to have a single system?
Yes. As a matter of fact, that was part of, and still is, of course, part of an upgrade path or a migration path, because that seemed like a very likely direction that customers with multiple CallXpresses would want to do, and certainly we encourage it because it does then give you a single point of administration and a single database to manage versus having multiple systems to manage. Yes, there certainly is, and I recommend you getting in touch with your sales rep.
Yes, that's a great reason to upgrade.
Yeah.
Next question. For VM conversion, do you still need to have a USB dongle for licensing?
Currently in version 8.5, the answer is yes. We do support the known methodology that VMware publishes a document for relative to direct path I/O, where you can put that dongle in the VMware platform, but most VMware administrators don't really care for that particular option. We can sell multiple dongles to support having to move the application elsewhere, or we also support a device called Anywhere USB, which is a network appliance and also certified by VMware. So basically you just plug it into the network, you plug your USB sticks into it, and the host, the virtual host can be run anywhere. Of course, you don't need to do, you don't have to have it on the same machine, you just need to be mapped to it. I will mention that in a future release, hopefully later this year, we do expect to be able to support CX in a virtual environment without the USB dongle.
Okay, next question. As administrator, I can't give access to my server to reset voicemail boxes. Is there an app that I can deploy so the help desk can reset boxes and not just passwords?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but the administrator does have an ability to reset the mailbox. Maybe I didn't understand the words you said at the beginning there, Emily. Can you restate the question?
Yeah, he's wondering, since he's an administrator, is there any way he can give access to somebody else to go in and make those changes?
Oh, so you can create multiple administrators and not give them, if for example they're help desk staff, and you'd rather not give them the entire breadth of what an administrator can do, you can create multiple administrators with throttling down the permissions of what they can and can't do. If you'd like, we can get in touch with you and just work through that so you're comfortable with how that can be done.
Yeah, we'll definitely get together offline on that question and follow up.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, the next question, if they already have XpressCare, they're asking if 8.5 is free if they're already on XpressCare.
So yeah, if you're on XpressCare, the upgrade to 8.5 is a no-cost upgrade. Certainly, there are professional services that are involved, and depending on what version you are on now, hardware may be, a hardware refresh may be required. There are other requirements that come along with being on 8.5, so we'd have to evaluate exactly where you are and what platform it's running on before saying there's no other cost. There certainly are some others, but software itself is a free upgrade.
Okay, next question. Is the information stored on your phone or just synced with the server?
Good question. The mobile app, all that information is not stored on the phone. It's all part of the web service and the connection to the CX that we have over that web service. So none of the contacts or any of that stuff is actually stored on the phone or voice messages.
Okay, this is a question about certification. It says they're an NEC UM8700 certified. Do they need to update their CXE certification?
I don't know the answer to that question. I would imagine we can certainly figure that one out. I would imagine contacting the regional sales manager Or
actually, Ed, I can answer that. Our support team does honor those certifications.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's the we'll go ahead and I can follow up offline just to make sure that gets to them, and they can manually update if there's any issues on the back end as far as tracking the certification.
Excellent.
Okay, and the last question is another dongle question, and they're just wondering if they need a dongle on a virtual system, a virtual server platform.
So currently in 8.5, and by the way, I should clarify, only the system server requires the dongle. Call servers do not. So currently the product that's currently shipping still ships with a dongle and is required. So you can plug it either into the virtual platform and map the application to that dongle port, use the Anywhere USB appliance that I've described. Both of those are supported in the VMware certification.
Perfect. And that looks like those are all the questions that we had. Again, we want to thank everyone for joining us for our webinar. If you have any other questions or any suggestions of content that you want to see in future webinars or anything else, you can always reach out to us at info@avst.com.
And thanks again for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.